Hello everybody and welcome to our virtual £67 mile. I hope you enjoy Sophie's new theme for blind tasting and taking wine exams. Later on today, Richard Banfield, MW, and Nick Baker of the Finest Bubble will be joining us to taste English wines and champagnes together. And then later we'll be joined by the MD of AXA Millésimes, Christian Seeley, for a tasting of Chateau Pichon Baron Longueville. And then after that, Tal Cohen will be tasting wines from the Judean Hills. But now we've got Sophie running through how she tastes wines blind. Hopefully most of you will have tasting packs at home and you'll have a great session learning how to taste wines. Okay, do chat away on the side, share with us what you're drinking, where you're drinking it from, when you find out what it is, of course, and share on social media with #67FromHome. As usual, we'll have 15 minutes at the end to ask Sophie questions, unless, of course, she runs over time. All right. Hi, Sophie.
Hi, Ronan. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. You recovered from the quiz night?
Yes. I mean, I would love to do that every day. It just, I love the music. I love the challenge to pick the right music for it and always be something new. No, but Peter says he hasn't yet recovered.
He hasn't yet. I think Peter spilled a glass of wine over his computer last night. He was enjoying it so much.
That's true. I mean, it was fun. It was great fun.
It was good fun, yeah.
It's gonna be fun as well today, the blind tasting. I mean, don't take it too seriously. It's okay if you don't get it right. You just learn from your mistakes. Like I had really bad days with blind tastings, and I had pretty okay days as well. So yeah.
Right. Thanks, Sophie.
Thank you. I tried to be in time this time. I even made a plan that I'm gonna speak less about how to taste wine and more tasting wine, actually, because I think last time we started to taste wines after 40 minutes. So anyways, if you do have the kit, feel free to share what you think of the wines in the chat box, what you think it is, so I can reply on that. And if you have any questions on the wine, or if you don't get it and you think it's something else, I might be able to help you out with that as well, to make you understand why it wasn't, for instance, a Roussanne, why it was a Marsanne. Anyways, let me start with my PowerPoint presentation. So whoever watched the first presentation on blind tasting, there are some similarities, but I did change a few slides to make it still a bit different. This picture was taken on one of my blind tastings at Pall Mall, where we have perfect lighting, perfect glassware, Spitzen's water ready with some crackers. So we have a really good environment for blind tastings. Generally speaking, we do taste blind. I hope you are tasting wine today because you just want to educate yourself, or you just want to have fun, or you'd like to investigate a little bit because you might be a lawyer and you want to practice your skills today with me. But generally speaking, I think it's a great way to figure out what you like to drink. Generally speaking, if you don't know much about wine, blind tasting, I believe is the best way to learn about it. I don't know if I mentioned it, but for instance, my family is not drinking wine. I'm not coming from a wine drinking family at all. The wine we had at home was always sweet wine, and it was in a PET bottle, so it was like 2 liters. It was see-through bottles, it was plastic, and it was just sweet. So I didn't have much experiences until I was 25 years old, I believe. And the way for me to learn about wine was always by having a glass from a friend or from colleagues, and learn what I like, what I taste, what I enjoy more, what I enjoy less, and then I kind of understood what is my palate suited for. Everybody's palate is different, so please keep that in mind, that just because I think it's acidic, it doesn't mean that for you it's going to be dead acidic. Some people are very sensitive to that, some people are more sensitive to tannin, and so on and so on. So this picture was taken at Pall Mall in our Marlborough room, where we sometimes do our blind tasting sessions. In this picture you see Svetoslav, who used to be working with us. Now he's an MS, and this time he was preparing for his MS examinations, and we tasted together. It was great. He's a great taster. Anyways, I've done WSET, but not the diploma yet. So I haven't started obviously the Master of Wine training either. I don't exactly know how they taste wines. I'm studying in the Court of Master Sommeliers, and we are using the deductive tasting format, which are focusing on the smell, I'm not talking about the conditions now. I was already into the examination style. So then before you taste, you do need to make sure that the circumstances are just right. I don't like to taste in areas where there's a lot of smell. Like for instance, I never use perfume. At work, it's really rarely that I use it. I would expect the same from other sommeliers as well, just because when you're walking around, even if you don't smell your perfume, others will do, and that might can change their sense when they are doing blind tasting. So it's very, very important, as well as the lighting. Generally speaking, it's great if you taste with natural light. In order to give you the professional environment for my tasting, I do have my shades down and I have a lamp. So the colors are not necessarily gonna be that easy for me to identify, but I did take a peek before. So generally speaking, natural light, or the lights that we are using at Pall Mall, are actually helping us to give us the best lighting we could have. The timing is a big thing. So they say that in the morning you taste better, especially when you're really hungry, because you smell much more and you taste much more. I think it's again very personal. In the evenings, generally speaking, it's the hardest to smell and to taste wine and identify wine. For me, early morning is super awful. I guess I'm just not a morning person, and it takes me a lot of time to wake up and realize what's going on around me. So for me, early morning is just not working. But for most sommeliers I've talked to, that's what they prefer. 9 a.m. in the morning. Blind tasting, for me, it's more like 11, 12. Pressure, it's proven then if you are tasting wine in planes, you're going to taste different things. So maybe blind tasting on planes might be a bit more tricky. I don't have experience in that, but I know some sommeliers have been in the air and tried wines. There is the last one. There's no more, so I can't see the screen from my computer. So this is the grid, the deductive tasting format that we're using for the Quarter Master sommeliers. This is more for the advanced and the MS level, not the certified and on introduction. There's no, I think there's tasting actually. Anyway, so we take a look at the wine, which is very important. I think most people are not necessarily paying too much attention on how the wine looks like. So for instance, if you look just the 3 little bottles of white wines, you more already see some color differences. But when you take a look at the 3 bottles, even from the bottle, you can tell on the red wines, there's quite a lot of color differences on each. So take always a look at the color. It's gonna give you quite a lot of ideas. When it comes in the nose, you smell so much more than what you taste. You can identify thousands of different things that's on the nose. So the nose is very, very, very important. And the palate, even though you can kind of give a feedback for yourself that what you're smelling, you're actually tasting as well. You might make a little bit of difference on ripeness levels and so on. But generally speaking, the palate for me is always about the structure, because structure is one of the most important part. Just because sometimes we often say that, let's say I smell bananas, and for me banana is always New World Chardonnay. And unfortunately, if you really stick on one thing, that you smell one fruit or one vegetable, or you just smell, let's say, petrol, it doesn't always gonna mean that that's the region that you have to aim for. For instance, petrol is not only in Moser region. So the structure is going to be always something you can go back to, and that can help you to identify the wine even better. Then you are making an initial conclusion, which is kind of like, oh my God, Ronan, if you're listening and you remember the saying you always say, and I never remember, but basically you're gathering evidence and you're going to the court and you lay your evidence down and you prove what you're saying is right. So you're in your initial conclusion, you're making a statement of things like whether if it's old or new word, what is the climate and why are you thinking that this grape variety would be Cabernet Sauvignon? Why do you think that it's coming from this country or that country? And then you talk about the age range and you make your final conclusion. So when it comes to the site, like I said, very important to have something like a white paper around or a white table. I always have a white napkin. I'm just having a small table. I always have a white napkin, a white paper around, so I can kind of lean my glass towards the whites. I'm just going to pour number one and kind of taste this together in a way that I want you to make up your mind on it, but I would still talk about it maybe a little bit deeper than I will on the next ones. So you take a look at the wine. I always just lift it up and I take a look. I kind of swirl this around, not too many times, but I do a little bit of swirl because we want to see the legs on our glasses. The legs are that are forming on the side of the glass, which is kind of like, we call it viscosity. And the first swirl is usually not the one that you are aiming for. That's why you do maybe a couple before you make your judgment on that. But generally speaking, you take a look and you kind of see that the wine is clear or not clear, if there's any sediment or there's no sediment. What about the color? If there's any secondary color on this wine, which could indicate some aging as well. If there's any hints of, for example, green, if there's maybe a little bit of green hint, that could tell you that this wine might be coming from a cooler climate or been harvested earlier, which regions are where people are harvesting earlier, and so on and so on. So take a look at your glass, make your own consumptions on it, and yes, is it clear or not clear? That's the question. So for me, this wine is pretty clear. There's no evidence of gas or sediments. It's got quite a kind of yellowy color. There's a little bit of golden hint for me, but like I said, I'm struggling a little bit with the lighting here. There's not much color difference. It's got a medium plus concentration in the colors, and the viscosity for me is kind of like medium. So if you take a look at the brightness of the color, so you can think of whether the wine is cloudy or hazy. Generally speaking, they would be unfiltered wines. If it's dull or bright, or day bright or star bright, or brilliant. So again, if you see a wine that is kind of brilliant, imagine just very expensive diamond that is super brilliant. It's got nothing to do with wine, but if you see anything very brilliant kind of color, that's going to be quite useful probably, and maybe even lower in alcohol, maybe harvested very acidic kind of grape variety. If the color is quite opaque, which I can show you, for instance, I see these colors for me are quite opaque. Again, that can give you some grape varieties that might have this pigmentation. There's also grape varieties that have less pigmentation and the color changes very quickly, turning into kind of garnety hues, which is, I think, on this color you can see very clearly, and it turns into this kind of color. So it oxidizes quite easily, but it doesn't mean the wine is oxidized, it's just the color changes quite quickly. When it comes to white wines, they get darker with time. So it's like if you have an apple or a pear or a quince, you cut it in half, or any kind of bruise, any kind of fruit, or you just hit it on the table. After a while, it's going to get brown. That's what happens also with wines. Fortunately, it takes much longer time, and they turn a bit darker. When it comes to red wine, they are losing color with age, so they get lighter and lighter, and the rim variation is quite evident as well. Again, pay attention on your rim variations. So yes, again, a reminder, color concentration, secondary colors are very important. It helps you also to think about climate. It helps you to identify grape varieties, and so on. Rim variation, again, as you can see, a Merlot with the age of 28 years and with a 4-year-old Merlot, what a color difference you see there. So the next one. Yes, so we talked about sediment. I hope you don't have any sediment in your glasses. You shouldn't have any. I don't have any. There might be some tartaric acid, some sediment, and some CO2, so some bubbles. I'm sure you have all seen tartaric acid. I'm sure you all have seen sediment. These are absolutely harmless things. Yeah, it's not a winemaker's fault. So don't really worry about them. Just filter it out with a nice cloth, or we filter it for you, of course, Pomo. So then I mentioned the legs. So it's called the Marangonian effect, which can tell us whether the wine has some sweetness, whether the wine has alcohol or where is the alcohol might be, but I think you can also say it by just smelling it and also of course tasting it. But these already give you an idea of where the wine might comes from. It might already tells you some climate as well, climate differences. And yes, I didn't change the slide. So Templom Black Jelenség, which is church window effect. If I want to really translate it from Hungarian to English, that's how it's called. So even in English, it's got a very difficult name, but even in Hungarian, it's even more difficult. So Templom Black Jelenség, that's how it's called. So like I said, we are gathering evidences, we are looking at the color, we can even think of oak, no oak, if the color is darker, it might have seen some oak, or it's been might be aged. What is the depth of the color? Is there any lighter hues? What is the viscosity? So whether you might have some residual sugar, or what is the alcohol level? These are the kind of things that you are looking out for. And then you smell the wine. Of course, like I said, smell is one of the most important things. When you look at the wine, you spend around 20 seconds, 25 seconds on an examination, and you have around 4 minutes for each wine, and you have to speak out loud. So the nose is, I think, where I spend probably the most of the time, and because there's so many things that you're looking for, and you kind of want to build a nice structure to it as well. So when you smell the wine, first of all, you wanna make sure that it's clean. There's no, let's say it's not oxidized, it's not faulty, there's no problem with the wine. This wine is definitely clean. When it comes to intensity, you do think of, it's really hard to put everything on a scale. What I always say is that imagine a wine like Pinot Gris, which is, for me, it's not a very aromatic grape variety. It's one of the least aromatic grape varieties I've smelled. It's tough for me to identify it because there's not much I smell on it. And it also can be changed by winemaking so easily that it could be, for me, almost anything. And then imagine like a New World Sauvignon Blanc. So Pinot Gris for me is not really showing. It's quite shy. I smell it and I need to think what I might smell. I need to really, really focus. When it comes to Sauvignon Blanc from New World, I just have my glass here. I pour a little bit and I can smell it already. So it's got a very high intensity. So this is kind of the scale I usually use, and I put it in between the other grape varieties that I know. And I think, let's say I smell this wine, it's got a quite nice intensity to it. But it's still not as intense as a New World Sauvignon Blanc for me. So I wouldn't say it's got high intensity. I would say it's medium plus. So this is the way I'm looking at it. Age assessment, so which means like if you smell it, do you think the wine is youthful? Is it developing? Is it already developed? What do you think? Where is it at its stage? I think it's still developing for me, very beautifully. What about the fruit, the non-fruit, the earth, the minerality, the tertiary characteristics, and so on? So there's so many we need to take a look at. The way we recall smell and taste is coming from memories. I'm sure all of us have been children before, and we all have very different experiences. I know when I was a kid, I was always smelling everything, and I was a little bit of a weirdo because we would go with my parents to the market, and I was super little, and I was always lost because I was just running around and smelling things, and they need to find me at the end. Because I just love the smell, and I'm really, really sensitive to it, I guess, or I used to be. And so everybody has different memories. I was also growing a lot on an agricultural land due to my family past. So I was working a lot with different vegetables and fruits. I was picking a lot of fruit. That was my first actual paid job. And cabbage fields and all these things when I was 14, 15, 16. So I've got a lot of memories with vegetable and fruits. And I guess wherever you're coming from, there's also some national spices and fruits and fruits, and even areas where you have been to. So for instance, if you like to go to for a nice walk in the morning in the forest, that's kind of the memory that you always have. It's you smell the glance, and you're going to be able to smell the forest floor much, much easier than maybe I would, who didn't have the morning walks in the forest because we didn't have any around. So everything is about memory. So when you smell this wine, you can already put in your memory pictures, some ideas that what you have, what kind of fruits and vegetables you have, because it's all there. You just need to train your mind. And you need to practice. As you can see, someone was practicing and he or she didn't give up and finally got into the hole. So you need to practice. It's something you can learn. So if you taste for the first time or the second time or the third time and you're not succeeding for you because you think that's success to get the grape, that's not the success. The success is to be able to get there, to understand why it is, let's say, I don't know, a Riesling, why it is, let's say, Cabernet Sauvignon, to really, really understand that. Because if you lift up a glass and you have a great memory of let's say you tried so many Rieslings in your life, so you know now it's a Riesling. I think what matters is to really, really understand why it's a Riesling and what are the notes that really make you feel this way. But again, you can learn it. I think the way I was practicing for blind tasting was many times that I would go to the market, and I remember people were telling me that a Gruner Veltliner smells like white pepper, and I was like, Jesus Christ, I never had white pepper in my life, never used it in cooking. So I went and it took me a while to find white pepper in Hungary, but I bought some white pepper and I was smelling it, but of course very carefully, because otherwise you're just gonna sneeze all day. But I was buying, we don't have many tropical fruits back there. So when I was in the States and where I started to study about wine, we had a lot of tropical fruit, and I was just buying them, cutting it half, smelling them. Another experience I had is Meyer lemon, which I often find in warmer climates. So instead of saying lemon or smelling lemon, people would say Meyer lemon, and I had no idea what's a Meyer lemon like. So I was buying Meyer lemon and smelling them side by side. So it's very important to practice, because it will come. You build your memories with all these vegetables and fruit. So same in here. So is it smelling more like black fruit? Does it smell more like red fruit? Is it ripe? Is it underripe? This one has a little bit more underripe kind of tone to it. This seems to be much more ripe to me. So these are also very important factors you're looking at. And also, if you look at all these kind of citruses, first of all, you're going to start salivating, which is acidity. Even if you look at, I mean, when I was picking the picture for this, I was looking at lemons, and I swear to God, I had to stop watching and looking at the pictures because I was just salivating so much. So it's already giving you this acidic kind of feeling. So if you have this quite tart, grapefruity, lemony, limey notes, you're probably gonna think of acidity as well. Another lemon, there you are. Now I'm gonna have to drink a glass of water. What else? So when you smell, there's primary aromatics, there's secondary and tertiary. If you smell the wine, you're looking for fruits. That could be so many different kind of fruits: tree fruit, citrus fruit, tropical fruits, and stone fruits. This is what the grape variety kind of can show. If you look at the reds, of course, it's going to be more on the black fruit, red fruit. What is the quality of the fruit again? Is it dried? Is it desiccated like fig and prune? If you look at non-fruit characteristics that are kind of like herbs and flowers and spices and barnyard kind of characteristics, which is going to be, I think, shown on the next one as well. No, so this one. So like spices I mentioned, that's why I put the red paprika here, because for me red paprika is something I'm very familiar with, and I tend to smell it in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, for example. For me, that's, if I smell red paprika, I'm kind of like, wow, I think I know where it is from, because it just triggers my memories. Secondary aromatics would be aromatics that is caused from winemaking. So if you are not familiar with oak can taste, there's different kind of oaks. Usually on classic grape varieties we are using winemakers, we use American oak or French oak, but of course there's also Slavonian Botti, there's also Austrian wine, there's also Austrian barrels, Hungarian barrels, and so on. But generally speaking, French and American oak are the most common ones, I would say. Depends on how much they char it. Depends on if it's American, probably you're going to have a much more coconutty flavor to it, heavier vanilla, but vanilla is also there, and baking spice and sweet spices would be there from French oak. If they are using malolactic fermentation, you get this kind of buttery, creamy character, almost like yogurty character. If there's some yeast aging, you get a bit of beery, hoppy character to it. So these are the things that could help you to identify the winemaking style. And of course, the tertiary aromatics that would be there because of its age. I didn't want to take this little piggy out because last time a couple of people told me that this was the cutest picture ever. So truffles, you might smell truffles, you might smell truffle, and then the leather, and then cedar and prune. Those are all tertiary aromatics. And earth is very important. I did mention the forest floor, moss, mushrooms, a barnyard for people from countryside. They probably can identify much easier barnyardy kind of notes than people from the city, and so on. Again, memories, it does help. And when you taste it on the palate, you're looking for sweetness, you're looking for tannin, acidity, alcohol. You want to have a nice balance to it. You think about its length, its complexity, and what is the flavor profile. So you kind of like, well, you're telling yourself what you smell is what you taste. And you do need to focus on what might changes. So when it comes to the structure, I did mention this before. So the sweetness, acidity, tannin, alcohol, and the body are very, very important. I like to explain things with pictures. So imagine, look at that. It is Chef Marcus's burger, our burger, the famous Parma burger. That you might really want to have. Now I'm getting hungry by just looking at it. So just imagine, you know, this burger without the bun. I mean, if you're gluten-free, that's completely fine. But let's say you're not and you don't get the bun. And then you don't have the meat. Again, if you're vegetarian, I understand you don't want to have the meat. But let's say you do eat meat. You don't have the meat, you don't have the onion rings, or you don't have the chips within. Something would be missed. So you want to have a nice balance. You want everything there. So everything harmonizes. The acidity, the alcohol, the tannin, everything is just very nicely balanced. Structure. Again, balancing. You have this little cutie trying to balance between the two flowers. The sweetness, the alcohol, acidity, and the tannin. So acidity is what makes it salivate. You think about lemon lime, you already start to salivate. Tannin. Have you ever had a black tea without anything to it? Yes, you try it and you get such a dry sensation over here. When it comes to alcohol, I always have a bit of warmth on the chest, or I just feel it on my throat, or even when I smell a wine and it's got high alcohol, I can kind of smell it. It makes me cough. And usually that gives me a little bit of an alcohol kind of feeling. When it comes to sweetness, just because a wine smells ripe or it's got kind of like a sweet fruit note, it doesn't mean that it's going to be on the palate sweet. So we are talking about sweetness like when the wine has some residue sugar. And the acidity, it can be tricky. I like to make this Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola has loads of sugar, but it's got the same pH as lemon. And for some reason, because of the sugar, of course, Coca-Cola doesn't taste as acidic as lemon does it. So if you taste a wine that's got high acidity, oftentimes winemakers use a little bit of residual sugar in order to balance that acidity out. So there's all kinds of acidities, and sweetness releases sensation, and it can preserve to age the wine longer. Just think of all the Rieslings from Germany. And of course the alcohol level, whether it's low, whether it's medium minus, so 10, 11.5. If it's medium, it's 10 to be 11.5, 13.5, medium plus until 15, and high alcohol would be over 15%. I mentioned tannin here, so dark chocolate, tea, pomegranate, they all have quite a lot of tannin. So if you would like to understand what's tannin, first of all, try an Nebbiolo. If you don't like chocolate, try Nebbiolo. Swirl it around the palate, and the drying sensation will really, really come out. And that's the tannin, as well as if you like dark chocolate. If you try it, it's going to be probably quite tannic. Same with the tea that I just mentioned before. And then, like I said, when it comes to initial conclusion and conclusion, you kind of confirm what was in the nose, what's the body like, what's the length, finish, complexity, and the balance. And yeah, that's it. We are going to taste now. Oh no, sorry. One more slide. So you're making your initial conclusion. You are putting the puzzles together. If you like Rubik cubes, you kind of put it together. You make sure that every color is on the right page, or you got your picture ready. Sharing is paused. I don't know why. Anyways, it did stop. Oops. Which is okay because I was about to stop anyways. So let's taste the first wine. I am going to give you, before each wine, 2 minutes, so you can taste yourself. I'm going to taste myself as well. I'm going to collect my notes, and then we are going to move on the second wine. We are going to move on the third wine, and then we are going to talk about the first 3 whites, and then we're going to move on to the reds. The reason why I am not going to review the first wine right after is because if I do that, we can already clue out that grape variety for the next 2. So that won't be too hard for you if you really want to take this seriously. So I like to have fun, but I also like to be serious. So let's taste the wines. Eric, that's good. Yes, so like Eric says, if you're in the garden and you have a lot of tomato around, you might gonna smell everything like it smells like tomato leaf. It's true. But if you smell like cherry tomatoes, and if you try, what is that called? My brother is a biodynamic farmer, and they are supporting 50 families every year throughout the year with vegetables, and they grow around 20 different tomatoes. And when I go home, I'm the one who is going around picking the tomatoes and smelling them, and I'm giving the descriptions to my brother, who is then going to give it to the families and describe like I described them, because he smells them as well. But because he cannot really bring out the memories, he cannot find the words right, I usually help him to. I mean, this year unfortunately I haven't had a chance to go yet, but something that we love to do as a family is smelling different kind of vegetables and tomatoes and describing them. That's all right, Peter. Honestly, I'm also a little bit blocked today, but still. Whoever does not have the wine, just to show you the color, that might help a little bit for some. I know that Ian has already made up his mind on this wine, and I can see Stuart as well. So gentlemen, if you have your, and Sydney, I can see Sydney, and I think you have the wines as well, if I'm not mistaken. So feel free to put it into the chat box of what you think, what it is. Again, there's no wine shame here, so no answer is bad. Peter, Chenin Blanc with oak. Do you smell oak? I mean, on newer Chenin Blanc, they often have some oak aging, yes, but not on this. Ian. So Ian says it's pale gold, medium plus aromatics, ripe, bruised apple, caramelized orange, honey, barley, sugar, hint wet wool, hint still, dry, high acid, medium plus alcohol, medium plus body, medium plus palate, confirm nose, long finish, very good quality, Nouveau Espanol, cool climate, Chenin Blanc, Loire, Savigny, 3 to 5 years, wooden rule, Riesling dough. Wow, Ian, you're studying. That's a beautiful description. So it is not a Chenin Blanc. It is not a Chenin Blanc. I must say that. So Chenin Blanc, I mean, I do get that this has bruised fruits, but for me, it's still quite citrusy. For me, the body is more weighty. I don't get that very Chenin Blanc characteristics like cardboard. I know it sounds bad, but like okay, dump seller. I'm gonna say dump seller. I don't have that kind of smell that I usually have on Chenin, and I always find Chenin a bit leaner in the body and much more in the kind of palate acidic in style. If it would be old world, it would be probably oaked. It would have a little bit of lactic notes as well. If it would be new world, probably they use their old oak. Rioja Blanc is the same. Rioja Blanc, it's not very, very classic, at least not on the Accord SSMAs, as far as I know. So I really pick classic grape varieties. Chablis, Stuart, do you have that flinty kind of aromatics? For me, Chablis is less aromatic than this one. I don't get that very mineral, flinty character. I don't get reductivity either. I don't get that pineapple-y, golden, delicious apple that I get on Chablis. There's a bit of tartness, yes, but there's no hint of sweetness either, Peter. Yes, you're right. So what I smell, and that might help you to identify, is that I do smell petrol. I don't know if you smell it, but I do smell petrol, and that already helps me a little bit. I do have also a lot of stone fruit indeed, but still it's so citrus driven. There's so much lemon and lime peel for me. There's kind of like a steely note to it as well on the nose. There's apple, yes, some of you said some apple. There's some apple tartness as well. I get a bit of smokiness. I've got a little of spiciness, like ginger spice to it. It's got this, it's got a bit of wet wall that you might find on Chenin notes. So Chenin, I don't think it's a really, really bad call. I must say that two of you already got the wine right. On the palate, for me, it's quite weighty. It's got a waxy kind of texture to it. The alcohol is yes, it's medium plus, so there's a bit more warmth to it. It can be easily confused with another Cronte, but same variety, because they share the similar climate and winemaking as well. So that would be already a hint. So let's say on the palate. Yeah, it's got medium plus even high acidity. It's got medium plus alcohol. I think, I don't know the exactly, I think 13.5, something like that, alcohol. It's got this honey kind of note. It's got this, it's got a little bit of florality like chamomile, but for me it's still very, very citrus driven. It's very waxy. I always think of the texture. I don't know, for me this grape variety is something I tasted so much. Sometimes it's hard for me to explain why, but I've been to this area and I tasted quite a lot of it. So it's not a Chenin Blanc. It is not a Chardonnay. It is old world. Just because the wine has a bit more moderated alcohol, it doesn't mean it's going to be new world. But it might come from a region where it might be a bit more warm. It's coming from a warmer area. It is coming from Alsace, and it is a Alsatian Riesling. Oh, why did I tell you? Jesus Christ! I just said that I'm not I'm not gonna say. Okay, so sorry. Yes, oops, I did say it. Anyways, yes, it's an Alsatian Riesling. Let's go to the next one, and after that, if there's any more certain questions, I'm gonna come back to those. So, wine number 2. I need to think what it was. So when it's at Parma, I usually don't know what are the wines. They pick it for me. It's not always very lucky, because I think last time Mr. Emmanuel picked me a Pinotage. And one was really funny about it. And then was, I think, almost the only red I got, or I only got 2 reds. I couldn't remember. I got Pinotage just because I had no idea what it is, and it had this burnt kind of rubber smell to it, and for some reason I just always smell it in Pinotage. Anyways, try the next wine, please, if you have it, or if I know, Ian, you tried it before, you can already write your descriptors if you wish. I'm very happy to read it out. It's actually nice to have them side by side as well. I'm just going to have the number 3 as well. So I understand why number 2 and 3 on the nose can be a bit tricky. Wow, I love these wines. So Ian, medium lemon, medium plus aromatics of banana, white rose, lychee, smoke, off dry, medium plus acidity, medium plus alcohol, medium plus, I guess, body. Lychee, banana, white rose, jasmine, hint of soap, medium plus body, long finish. Again, no evidence of new oak, aromatic grape variety from cool climate, Gewürztraminer, answers 3 to 5 years, wouldn't rule out Pinot Gris. No, Ian, it's not as aromatic, I think, as a Gewürztraminer. I haven't tried on the palate, but it shouldn't have residue sugar either, or at least not much. Peter, that's not a bad call. But what about the alcohol? From Hunter, it would be lower in alcohol. They tend to be quite moderate in alcohol. I think, what is the percentage? 10%-ish in Hunter. I think the alcohol here is much more elevated. Also the color. If you look at the color, again, it's got kind of like a golden color to it. Yes, it does have waxy notes. What else does it have? Don't you smell some greenness to it? Because I've got one thing that always helps me when I have this type of wine in my glass, when I smell lemongrass. Lemongrass with a bit more alcohol. To me, it's medium plus alcohol, to be honest with you. This texture. Do you think there's any oak here? Yes, JTVT. Yes, there's a bit of butteriness here, indeed. There is a bit of sweet spice as well. So I understand why you might want to Chardonnay, just because it's got that texture in a way. So I think it already tells you that there's oak aging here, and there's also probably oak fermentation as well. But I think there's a few things here that really jumps out of the glass that is just nothing like Chardonnay. I can understand why would you say Sauvignon Blanc, because exactly that's one thing that jumps out of the glass for me, this asparagusy kind of note. Yeah, it smells like green beans for me. It smells like asparagus. It smells a little bit of like clementine. It smells like marmalade a little bit. It smells a little bit like grass. It smells a little bit like smoke. There's some really good guesses here. There are, really. It's just, again, I don't want to review it. Once we're gonna taste the third wine, after that, we are going to talk about them maybe a bit deeper if you want me to. So I hope you're ready for the third. I am ready. Last time I gave some hints. What is my favorite grape and what I like? I can help you with that. I do love this grape variety. Most people don't. This is the color. Or I should just put it like that because I actually have a white background. Please smell it. I think I said this last time, if you're smelling your glass and you don't seem to have more aromatics coming out, swirl it up. And I like to open my mouth a little bit and smell it like that. Yes, so Rodrigo is saying that if you would all please be so kind to comment on the chat box with all panelists and attendees, just because some of you are only texting to all panelists, like Eric JTVT, Mr. Morehouse, Peter. You were only texting to me. So there's Rodrigo who is listening, but he doesn't have the wines, and he was curious about what you think. So he would even take a guess by even our descriptors. No, that's completely fine. It happens. It happened with the quiz as well. So if you have another quiz next time, all panelists and attendees, because I was told that while me and Ronan were having so many messages coming in, not everybody saw them. So it's important to set it up. Wine by 16. That's fine, Pizza. Do you like it though? If you like the wines, that's what matters. And it's also good for hangovers and hay fever as well, definitely. All right, so what do you think of these wines? I'm just gonna give you a few things that I smell and I taste. First of all, when I look at it, it's quite weighty. The way the legs are forming are very, very slow. So it's got quite a lot of weight to it. Yeah, I got a little bit deeper color as well. There's no evidence of sedimental gas. I don't have any color variation either. When I smell it, it is aromatic, but in a very kind of like pronounced, kind of like calm way in a way. So it smells a lot of things, but you kind of have to look for it. There's a couple of things that are jumping out for me, which if I want to give you a hint, for me, yeah. Somebody said hand soap. For me, this wine smells like hand soap. It smells like chamomile hand cream, as well as white peaches. It smells like a little bit of lychee. It does have the it does have a Pinot Gris kind of texture to it, indeed, but the color just at least if it smells us, it doesn't really fit. It's got a high viscosity, a lot of stone fruits, a lot of kind of apricot-y note to it. What else? I've got oak here. I've got pronounced sweet spice. I've got pronounced creaminess and butteriness as well on the palate. I've got, again, if you take a look at the structure, what does the acidity kind of shows? For me, acidity is very, very moderate, while alcohol is quite elevated. So these are the hints that I have for you. That helps me to get the wine. Also, it's quite floral. I did not have ever jasmine tea. Was more like making elderflower syrup at home. So I am pretty familiar with elderflower, but this one smells like, it smells like jasmine tea for me. And the texture, it's so coating. It's really something that almost like you try it, and in the palate you get a layer of creaminess, kind of oiliness to it, that even it feels like it's protecting your whole palate. I do like its aromatics a lot. It might be difficult for some people because the alcohol level might be a bit higher than most people usually like, and this level is more moderate, and people tend to like more crisp and fresher style of wines. But this is something that I really enjoy, and I feel it as a challenge for wine pairings as well. One of my probably favorite wine pairings with this wine would be foie gras. Not foie gras, sorry, pan-fried foie gras actually, which we used to do quite a lot, and I didn't believe it, but it works absolutely amazingly. So really tough orange peel. Yes, it's got quite a lot of orange peel. Well done. Clementine, high alcohol, Muscat, no hidden region. Muscat would be much more aromatic. Vendange tardive. Vendange tardive can be sweeter, but it could be also quite dry. Doesn't have to have botrytis, but sometimes it does. I don't get that either. Albarino, Vinho Verde. Albarino, Vinho Verde, if you try that, it's quite acidic. It's called the green land or green wine. So it's got much more crispiness, much more freshness to it. It is not too far, but if you focus on the structure, that gives you the answer. It's not Albarino. Albarino is much more, I think it's greener on the palate. It's not this flowery on the palate, and the alcohol is also less, and the acidity is much more. South African Chenin Blanc. I don't think that's a bad guess, but again, I'm missing the acidity there. Bordeaux Semillon. Well, you're gonna get your answer very soon. I'm gonna show it to you. Let me just find my little blind wines. I actually put them in a separate place. All right, so I am going to show you what was the first wine. Okay. Share screen. So it was an Alsatian Riesling from 2014, quite difficult vintage with a lot of rain, from Valentin Zislin, Clos Liebenberg. Wine number 2. I should have the drum sounds. Wine number 2. Again, share screen. White Bordeaux, so Semillon Sauvignon. So for some of you have said Semillon, some of you have said Sauvignon. It's actually a blend, very well known in Bordeaux, the white Bordeaux's. If you don't really like Sauvignon Blanc, because some people love it, as for those who love it, I like to give Semillon Sauvignon Blanc for Bordeaux, because I think it's absolutely amazing. And for those who don't like Sauvignon Blanc, this is something I also show, because the blend together is just something unbelievable. So the second wine of Chateau de Fusain, 2015, Pessac Léognan, a bit warmer vintage. Wine number 3. Oh my God, I don't have my drum thingy. It's okay, I'm gonna get that for the reds. Wine number 3 is it's a Viognier, 2016, a much fresher vintage from Domaine de la Roche Paradis. And some of you had the eye of Cuilleron, Condrieu, very similar in style. So Viognier, they used to, I'm just gonna read Bordeaux Semillon. This is tough today, but fascinating and brilliant. Thank you, Peter. Dawn, I got a bit of passion from last night, but not this morning. Italian, wow. All right, well, some of you did get close. If you have any questions on them, let me know. Generally speaking, let's go to, let's say, with the Fusa, for instance, they tend to barrel ferment and barrel age. They often use new oak. So you do got, some of you did say new oak, some of you did say some sweet spices. So I understand if you smell that, you might get, yes, you're gonna have a point for Semillon. You might get that kind of oak aromatics. It gives a bit of smokiness to it. But like I said, the waxy characteristics, which is coming from Semillon, this kind of green characteristics are coming from the Sauvignon Blanc, and blended together gives to it. I usually Clos Floridan is probably one of my favorite producers as well when it comes to Bordeaux Blanc, and they have a bit deeper color. For some reason, I didn't get that on this one, but I tend to see a bit more deeper color on Bordeaux whites as well. When it comes to number 3, Viognier, they tend to use lately oak aging. They tend to use malolactic fermentation, which gives even more texture to it. And again, like I said, very moderate acidity with much more alcohol compared to that. So it's got usually high alcohol to it. The mouthfeel is, again, very important. So like I said, when you smell things like some of you said Albarino, they do call Viognier, or they do call Albarino as the baby Viognier. So that's one of the reasons. Probably they have very similar aromatics, but once you try it on the palate, it's really, really different. All right, Ronan did challenge me to finish in time. I'm not finishing in time. I hope you don't mind. Let's go with the reds. Feel free to try it already. I honestly can't remember the alcohol level. This time I didn't get the bottles. Trying to think. Oh man, I love this wine. So if you take a look at the color, I hope you made up your mind on this, just because I'm going to start describing it a bit more. So it's got pear ruby. Ian says pear ruby, medium aromatics with cranberry, raspberry, crushed strawberry, hint of smoky stems, dry, medium plus acidity, medium minus fine tannin, medium plus alcohol, medium body, fruit slightly riper on the palate, Pinot Noir, could it be Spätburgunder from Baden or Fonts or Santa Barbara? Very good, Ian. I really like your descriptors. So if you look at the color, it's quite light in color, quite see-through. So which means I tend to put my hands underneath. Whoops. I'm just really not good at it. Anyways, you can even see the reflection of the white paper. There's a little bit of lighter ruby here into it. So it's quite pale in color. And ruby mostly, there's a little bit of orangey hint to it for me. There's a tiny bit of staining on the glass, which means how much color reflects back on the side, on the rim of the glasses. So there's a little bit of staining there. I don't see anything in the glass. It's quite clear. For me on the nose, it's quite ripe, dominated by fruit. Again, when it comes to red, it's, for me, it's an old or new word. It's very important for me to distinguish whether it's led by fruit or it's led by other things like earth, vegetable, and so on. For me, it does smell like much more fruit. It's almost like it's kind of like a sunny place. For me, when I smell it, I already see myself on the beach sipping on this glass of wine. So yeah, it's got a bit warmer climate, generally speaking. Some of your guesses are not necessarily classic, but I'm happy to help why it's not the one that you're guessing to. Some of your guesses are actually really, really close. Just to tell you that you're on the really right track. So there's a lot of fruit here. Yes, there's definitely. Is it led by red fruit, blue fruit, black fruit? For me, it's red fruit driven. A lot of strawberries and raspberries. They are not jammy or cooked, but they are very much ripe. They are ready to be chewed on, drink on. There's also a little bit of stems, like some people said. There's a bit of stanny greeny note to it. If you smell it, this is something that always helps me. For some reason, I don't know why, but from this region and from this area, if I smell this grape variety, I tend to have a little bit of a dealy kind of pickly characteristics to it. On this one, it's much more moderate than some I've had before, but this always helps me to identify the wine. I don't get too much earthiness, but there's a little bit of earthy undertone to it. The elevated alcohol, quite moderate acidity. I mean, acidity is actually there, it's quite fresh. But again, if I'm thinking of Old World, New World, and I'm thinking of other regions where this grape is coming from, compared to that, it's still more moderate to me. And like I said, it's led by fruits. For me, the oak is not too present, but there's a little bit of sweet spice, which is really, really just, giving a very nice structure to the wine. It's part of it. It's not overwhelming it at all. So maybe there's not necessarily new oak there, maybe used oak, or even if it's new, it's less charred, or let's pronounce like it's not necessarily French or American oak. I'm not sure about the oak usage, but I think there's no new oak on this one. So you'd like to have some tips on Old World, New World. I think it's getting more and more difficult. Just to give you an example, in the Trout Gulch vineyards, for instance, if you make a Chardonnay, or even if you're in Kummel River, you make your Chardonnay, oftentimes it's so easy to say it's Old World. So it's getting, I think, more and more difficult sometimes to to make a difference. But generally speaking, what I focus on is the fruits and what is leading the wine. So for me, if I smell this wine and I think of a grape variety, because I'm sure you already have, and some of you very rightly thought already a grape variety, what I'm thinking of is it more fruit or is it more earth driven? Where is the acidity? Where is the alcohol level? What about the tannins? What about the wine making? Where are they using stems? Where are they using less nuke? Where are they using more nuke? And all these kind of things I'm thinking of. But like I said, nowadays, I think sometimes with very well-known grape varieties who are trying to do different styles, or just generally speaking, going back, even if it's new world, going back from very new world style, they are trying to make more fresh style, more over style wines in a way too, so it's much easier to consume for and please the average guest consumptions. So that's something that I hope helped for you. Okay, I think we can try number 2. I didn't get more glasses ready, so I hope it's not gonna smell like Semillon Sauvignon. Wine number 5. I'll give you a couple of minutes. I haven't tried this wine for a long, long time. Yeah, I think I picked you a much more difficult blind this week than first time. I made my notes on this as well without tasting it. What is the alcohol here? Isn't just me, but it feels warmer. It might be by throat. When I have a little bit of sore throat, I just tend to feel a bit more alcohol. It's actually 13%, so it's me who just feels it it's a bit warmer, because it shouldn't be warmer, but I just wanted to make sure that I'm right. So Ian, medium purple, slightly cloudy, pronounced rye, black cherry, rye, blackberry, earth, leather, old wood, dry, medium plasticity, medium grip tannin, medium body, medium alcohol. Yeah, it should be medium alcohol. It's me. For me, everything tastes quite high in alcohol today. Carignan-based Priorat, but not sure if it's full-bodied. But it would be more Grenache kind of style if it's Priorat. Full-bodied enough, nor enough tannin. Given the color, fruit, earthiness, and natural winemaking, one of the full Beaujolais crus, such as 101, more gone 2-3 years old. It's a good guess. It's a really good guess, Ian. Yes, Ian is a very fast typer. That's why he gained a lot of scores as well yesterday on the quiz. Well done, Ian. Earth, quite hot, big red fruits, leather, tobacco, super Tuscan Cab Merlot. No, not really. Red fruit scented OC Grenache. Pomero, no. Okay, so is it vegetal for you? Is it herbaceous to you? How much vegetal kind of herbaceousness do you get? What about the body? What about the acidity? For me, the acidity is very, very pronounced. JTMBT. Cabernet Sauvignon is a great variety that is, I think it's very easy to mix it up with sometimes. What helps me on this wine is that the acidity is very, very pronounced. For me, Bordeaux are always medium acid, medium tannin, kind of medium alcohol. And I was taught this way, if you have a Bordeaux, it's going to be medium. It's going to be a very nice balanced medium wine. Why this one has high acidity indeed. It's very intense acidity. It's got medium plus tannin, medium kind of tannin actually, but it's quite green, which again helps me. There's kind of a lot of green notes here. Alcohol is actually medium For me, like I said, everything feels a bit warmer. I do apologize for that, but it is medium. If it would be raw and runny, yeah, but I don't get that the spices and the leathery kind of hang meat characteristics that I would get on Rhone. I don't get that kind of reduction either. You're getting there. I'm giving you some thoughts, and you're all getting there. So yeah, it's got a lot of vegetal notes. It's got this rustic, earthy character. It's more kind of red fruit than black fruit, but there's some there as well. So there's some good guesses coming in now. I'm not gonna talk too much about it because again we are 8 minutes after 3. So I'm gonna pour the last one. We're gonna try it, and at the end, if you have any questions about it, please feel free to ask. If I cannot answer, maybe Ronan can. I'm not a master just yet. Number 6. Oh, this is the wine. So I picked this wine. I think I've tried a very, very long time ago. This is a grape variety that I really wanted to showcase today. And I'm so happy it smells like this because it's very, very typical. Yeah, please smell, please try. Yeah, it's definitely got more alcohol than the previous ones. I think you can feel that, even smell that. I need to get a spittoon. I'm using my vase. I don't have any. I usually don't use spittoons at home. So Nanette, I'm gonna call you out. What do you think it is? Sydney, you as well. I know you have the wines. All right, Ian. Medium purple with pink rim, medium plus very ripe blackcurrant, Ribena. I don't know Ribena. I need to look it up. A hint of pansy shavings. That's actually a good call. Parasins, dry, medium acid, medium plus ripe chunking. You got really good descriptors. Yeah, really good. Morehouse, Mr. Morehouse, big alcohol, summer pudding in a glass with some booze. Lovely one to finish. Primitivo from Puglia. I like the descriptor of summer pudding in a glass. Ribena, blackcurrant cordial, which is very sweet. Okay, thank you. It does have blackcurrant. That's one of the reasons it's really hard to confuse it with another grape variety also planted around this area. Sydney, red peppery fruit, cedar, herbaceous, rich and slightly tannic, chili carmenera. Look at you, Sydney. You've been practicing. Desiccated ripe fruits, jam, deep color, light tannins, high alcohol, no idea grape origin. That's completely fine. Malbec, as you were possibly Argentina. Malbec is a grape variety that for me is really tricky. Oftentimes, if I had Malbec, I said Syrah, and if I had Syrah, I said Malbec. For some reason, Syrah and Malbec for me was something that for a long time. I think even if you give me now 2 very, very good Malbec, cooler climate, I would say Syrah. I hope I wouldn't, because I should have learned from my mistakes, but still, it's difficult. I would have much more florality. For me, Malbec, again, don't take it in a bad way if somebody is from Argentina or they like Malbec. For me, Malbec smells more like more jammy fruit, and it's less less like fruity, a bit more artificial fruit in a way, but in a good way. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I tend to get sometimes a little bit of earthy qualities to it again. The color mild would fit, yes. There's also quite a lot of staining here, which I would get in Malbec as well. So it's not a bad guess, but I miss Malbec would not give for me this very peppery, bell pepper, paprika, capsaicin kind of notes. I also tend to have on this white pepper that helps me. Yes, the alcohol is quite high. I think it's around 4.5, something like that. So it's pronounced. The acidity and the tannin is quite mediumish, although the tannin feels a bit more medium, plus a bit more grippy. Is it a blend? I think it might be having a grape variety a little bit in it, which some of you have already said. I think maybe 10%. Or 0, I'm not, I think it's around 10%, but it's really dominated with one grape variety. So for me, I think it's difficult. I chose this wine as the last one because the previous wine was in a way similar in some notes, but the palate is so different again, and the color is also different, but could be easily mistaken if you never had them side by side. And now if you have them side by side, it makes a bit more sense. So it's got a lot of green qualities to me, high alcohol, bramble fruit, a lot of fruit, ripe fruit, almost kind of gem characteristics indeed. So it's going to be new world for me. For me, Malbec, it would be, like I said, more floral, less green, and that's why I wouldn't go with Malbec. If you are ready, I am going to show you the wines, and then we can talk about it. Just so you know, one of you have gotten it, and one of you had said it's from a country, and you got that right. Okay, so wine number 4. Which one was wine number 4? This one. Share screen. It was a Cooch Pinot Noir from Sonoma Coast 2017 from the MacDougall Ranch, which I think is also considered as their, I think when we had the webinar with them, we were told that it's kind of like a summery vineyard. You smell that kind of summery character to it. So that would be wine number 5. Sorry, wine number 4. Wine number 5 would be sharing screen. Okay, share screen. Cabernet Franc from Anjou, 2017, Orient Alpha, from Pierre Maynard. Maynard, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. And then the last one, but not least one of you has absolutely nailed it. Well done. Ooh, Sydney. It's Carmenere. There might be a little bit of Malbec in it. I'm not 100% sure. It's 85 or 90% Carmenere 2018 vintage. Okay, so these were the wines. Yes, there's a lot of pyrazine, exactly, and a lot of fruit, and that's why it's newer Carmenere. Yes, these are very. I think it's. I think blind tasting is also quite personal. Sometimes we have different experiences. Sometimes I have different experiences, and I still under 600 pound man. I forgot to change my name, DJ Sophie. So yes, I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned something new today. If you have any questions today, tomorrow, anytime, you can always find me, and I'm happy to help if I can. If not, I will ask my mentors, and I can answer your questions after that. Anyways, I hope you had a good time. Thank you, Ronan, and everyone who joined. You did a great job. You should actually get now a drumstick kind of sound. I just don't have, or like what we played yesterday. What was it? Mariah Carey? No, I can't remember. What was it? See, it feels like it was a million years ago. I can't pay now, can't find it. Anyways, thank you so much. Thank you, Ronan. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I see you very, very, very soon.